Hello, PSI2000. We're back for week 12, Electoral Politics and Strategies. This week's reading should be fairly fun because everybody wants to talk about political parties and political strategies. Key messages I want you to take away from the week's reading, however, are how parties broker their support base. In last week's discussions, our video, you heard me talk about how people can end up supporting a particular point on the left-right political spectrum from completely different perspectives. From some will be there from economic standpoint, some will be there from a socially conservative standpoint or a socially liberal standpoint, whatever political party they're supporting. So what political parties are constantly trying to do is to broker those that base through the various types of messaging they do to various elements of that base. And so we often call our political system a brokerage party system that tries to broker these different perspectives for being largely at the same spot in the left-right political spectrum. So that's a key message that you should draw out of the week's readings. The other key points out of the week's readings are the tactics that political parties use to and how those have changed in the recent period. In the last sort of 20 years or so, we've seen a shift to where in the past elections were the activities were the periods of time when political parties came out and talked to the people, talked about their party platforms and so on. And then in between electoral periods, there were debate about policies and things like that, but it didn't have an electioneering quality to it. But in the more recent period, what we're seeing is what political scientists are calling the permanent campaign, where political parties are often in a constant election campaign mode, constantly making use of their base to get message out to their base and to use their base to get messages out to other people. And so the tactics have really changed in the use of social media and the use of the media, the traditional media generally. And that dynamic has become much more noticeable in the recent periods as political parties have become more sophisticated at using their various avenues to be in what really people are calling the constant campaign or the permanent campaign mode. The Conservatives in Canada were perhaps the first to really mobilize that approach to politics, borrowed largely from the United States. Prime Minister Harper's government was, it's well recognized, was essentially in constant campaign mode. They looked at almost everything through an election lens to a greater degree than any other government we saw in Canadian history. Now, does that mean that all political parties need to begin to function that way? Well, there's evidence that is in fact what is occurring. The constant awareness of the permanent campaign. And we're even seeing that to a degree now with the new government, even though they haven't been there that long, we're beginning to see signs of it. And maybe that's just the reality of the new world of social media and just a wider base of media. The constant flooding of information that people receive in the modern day. Political parties need to maintain their space in that limited time that people have to devote to new messaging. And so political parties are out there competing with all the other messaging that occurs, marketing of products, social messages from voluntary groups, you name it, and political parties now feel that they have to be out there constantly conveying their message. And this has changed the natures of campaigns, have changed as well. To where the parties have become much more sophisticated at controlling the media messaging and using social media to get their base supporters to support their outward migration of their viewpoint or their point of view on particular subject matters. So political campaigning, electoral strategies have become much more complex in the recent period. And a lot of that, interacts heavily with current modern day technology, such that you are able to do the permanent campaign with relative cost effectiveness in social media and other venues. And so take a look at when you read your readings for this week. Make sure that you're really sensitive to the fact of how much political campaigning has been changed since the days of even the days of Pierre Trudeau to the days of Justin Trudeau, and how technology has changed, how campaigning has changed, how messaging has changed, and so on. And that has been influenced a lot by technology, but also, we have a new era emerging too, that social media and other cheaper or more manageable ways to get messages out have begun to challenge the traditional media. The traditional media, finds it much more difficult now in all the different venues for communication that are out there to compete. Their budgetary strings are therefore challenged. Their profits of privately held newspapers have consistently gone down. Investigative reporting, because the money's not there, has consistently gone down. And media has tended to reproduce things that are handed to them. And as a result, and political parties have become very adept at that. They've become very adept at pre-canning messages to the public, and because the media doesn't do as much investigative analysis as they used to, and budgets are tighter in the traditional media. The traditional media takes up these messages, packages them, and sends them out, rather than sort of more investigative journalism. All these factors interact with why political parties have moved in the direction of new campaign strategies. And so when you're doing your readings this week, think about how campaign strategies have been changing. Think about how that how technology has had a significant impact on that, and how technology has also had a significant impact on where the public used to get their traditional political information, which was from the traditional media, and how that has changed over time. And that will give you a more sophisticated understanding of electoral strategies, how political parties broker their base. Remember last week's discussion about how people could be on the same spot in the political perspective, or the political spectrum, but for completely different reasons, and how political parties, massage that message. Okay, so we'll see you again next week. Cheers. Bye.